probably the best ball striker. I don't know if you can put up Ribeiro in the league. You
Chuck,
see that
you
because
saw him.
no, think
you
about
saw
it.
him live.
Think about it.
Live and in
I saw him live, Jay.
What do you mean? Like you cannot put him up against Mofokeng as a ball striker? You saw
his goal midweek. You saw his goal midweek from range.
I don't argue
You've
the
seen
fact,
him,
I don't argue the fact that
pulling.
Mofokeng has he's got a brilliant ball strike on him. But when you say you cannot put up anyone against him, Chuck, you saw it yourself.
Technique and brains, Jay.
It is a new month, but it is the same old, maybe not same old. It's the same exciting two up front. My name is Jay, and as always, I'm with Chuck. What up?
Oh, good, man. On a hot day, recording it's hot. On the weekend, it was hot. It's just too hot now, man.
And there was hot action at Soccer City FNB Stadium where... Yeah, there were Chiefs fans who were talking about if Sundowns win that match, they're going to walk back home to Limpopo. And I think I saw that fan was walking all the way home because already Sundowns came through, Chuck, in that Carling knockout quarterfinal 4-0, 3-0 at halftime. Maybe it could have been more, 4-0. Mm-hmm. And when asked about the match afterwards, the coach of Sundowns, Mangoba Mngiti, he reckoned that the occasion was too big for the young players and an institution like Kaizer Chiefs is one that you should not burden the young players with. Do you think that was the issue on Saturday and maybe an issue going forward?
First of all, I don't think that fan is walking from Jozi to Polokwane. So when I'm a snippet, so I don't trust him because, I mean, after such heartbreak, why would you do that? But nonetheless, burden. You know what? We were speaking to Happy Jay for a brief second about this particular topic, right? And I said to him that let's play the youngsters for Chiefs and maybe that they will give them the way forward. And he's like, and then what happens to the senior players? Do you just throw them away, you know? So I don't think because that's not what's happened to Chiefs. You've got Umtu, Notuba who starts, or Vilagaz comes off from the bench. So the other 8-9 players of senior application, if you could say, in the team. And I think they do take the responsibility. I think they do try. It's just that they aren't as good as the youngsters. So I don't think that the burden is placed on them necessarily. It's just in the expectation from the fans. I don't think it's Nabi saying, guys, win us the game. I think it's the fans who are thinking, well, if we look around, Ranga's not going to win us the game. I don't think it's Yusuf Mart. I don't think it's Castillo. So we look to Mtu. We look to Duba. We look to Vilagaz. And so from a fan's perspective, I think that's where the pressure comes from. But just generally, according to that statement, is it even a thing, man? I think if you're good enough to don the shirt, I think you should be, the pressure comes on you, whether you're young or whether you're old. Yes, it's a big institution, but I mean, if you're good enough to be in that side, then you should be able to contribute towards a win. So I think Mangoba's got a point in that you don't want to burden the youngsters, but at the same time, if they're already at the institution, then the expectation is already sky high. People say when you're at Chiefs, it's different. Tusapala said he doesn't care who says what, but when you're at Chiefs, it's just different. And whether they were looking for Tusapala to win the game for them or not, I don't know. But what I'm saying is that when you're there, and you have to perform. So I don't think they're burdened. And if they were burdened, I think, I would side with his comments, but I don't think that's the case at this point in time.
I think they are burdened, Chuck. I think literally lessened. And I think with Kaizer Chiefs, particularly the fact that this is a team that hasn't won anything for a decade. They're trying to get back to those lofty heights of Kaizer Chiefs. They have a new coach, and that's where they're trying to get back to, right?
Yeah.
And they're trying to do it with youngsters. I mean, even in the game against Mamelodi Sundowns, it's too big of an occasion. And you know what? Like later in the evening, on the weekend, right? I was watching Barcelona, following what they did against Bayern Munich and Real Madrid, and Yamin Yamal. We saw what he did at the Euros, and we see with the players that they've matriculated from La Masia to the first team. And they're doing great. You know, they're leading with Barcelona. Who knows? Perhaps to a La Liga title. And we'll see what they do in the Champions League. But that's an exception, right? And we should not look at exceptions and make them the rule. Similar to how Mofokeng, who we'll speak about, is who he is. He's a special talent. But even with him, he's surrounded by very good players in that team. Kaizer Chiefs being Kaizer Chiefs, when you think about the youngsters who have been given a chance and to be star players, to be main characters of Kaizer Chiefs in the past, you think of someone like a Chabupule. That's an exceptional talent. I don't think it's a matter of he's just young. You think Dr. Khumalo, because I believe he also broke into the team at 17 years old. Teenage Lada, similarly, he was young, and we know what then transpired with their careers. But even someone like Ujabu, right? So number one, you have to be an exceptional talent, but around you, there needs to be leaders. They need to be the experienced heads. Because if you think, let's talk about the PSL era, about the better or the best Kaizer Chiefs sides. You think of a team that, for example, had Patrick Mabedi. He had like hundreds of caps under him. You think Thabo Muke, hundreds of caps within that same team. Dr. Khumalo was in that team. Thabang Lebeso was in that team. Brian Baloyi has over 300 caps for Kaizer Chiefs, right? And then if you come to maybe the more modern times, where you had Ushaba, you had Uyeye, you had Ukune, you had like your Cyril Nzamas along the way, Nengo Mashes. These guys had hundreds of Kaizer Chiefs caps under them. When you look at the team that played against Sundowns over the weekend, right? If you just look at the keeper and the back four, the most experienced member of that unit is Frosler. And Frosler has been in and out of the team. He hasn't like locked down that right back position. The rest of that back line, the goalkeeper, it's his first season. The two centre backs, it's their first season. The left back across, it's his first season. You go then into the middle, like Zwane it's his second season. He's young, and you see that he is maybe overawed by the occasion, or he has not yet understood what is required of him in that heart of midfield in that team, because we saw what happened with the first goal, what led to that penalty. It's him trying to backheel in a place where he's not supposed to do that. You think then if there was a more experienced player, that doesn't happen. So the issue with this Kaizer Chiefs team is there are no experienced players, right? The experienced players that are there, you think of Umar, he's not been great for Kaizer Chiefs. You think of Frosler, as I'm saying, he's not been someone who has been a mainstay in the starting 11. And then you have a Serino, who 33 years old, a whole lot of experience in his career in the PSL. But this is his first season at Kaizer Chiefs. How big of a voice does he really have? I mean, Miguel was captaining them. And he's not even 10 games into his Kaizer Chiefs career. So the problem is that they don't have those experienced heads. And the players who are experienced haven't been there long, or they're not performing at the best levels. And as a result, you have to rely on the youngsters, but you shouldn't be in that position. You shouldn't have to rely on the youngsters at Kaizer Chiefs, because it's a lot, Chuck. And Ulon Shabalala, he came out and he spoke about this last season, which it's hard for the youngsters. Speaking about like Umfundo Vilagazi, the expectations of Kaizer Chiefs are heavy, and when we don't do well, there's a lot of criticism. And you hear him speaking like a young man who's not been through much in life. They are forced to grow up very quickly because that's where they find themselves. But you are concerned, Chuck, in terms of how that development is going to go, because it is sink or swim. And with sink or swim, you're either going to sink or you're going to swim. If they swim, then you look back on it, it's like, man, those early moments of being tried by fire help them out. But if it does not work out, as it hasn't worked out for Kaizer Chiefs in a while, then you look around and you think to yourself, where are the experienced heads?
Jay, I think if you want to use kid gloves, then you loan them out. But for as long as they're playing for Chiefs, everyone's expectation is the same. And I say that because when they're playing in Polokwane against Magesi and they're coming back and Du's playing, it's great. When they're playing in Bloemfontein and Vilagazi scoring the winning goal, it's great. But at some point, you're going to go to the Cauldron. That is the FNB Stadium with 90,000 fans expecting you to perform well. And that expectation for me is upon everyone. It just so happens that you being Vilagazi, you being Duo, you being Duba Oswane, you just so happen to be one of the best players in that side. And as a result, you have to... Look, here's what I think. I don't think that the coach calls upon you and you're like, coach, I'm not ready. I don't think you've got the Kevin Johnson thing about you where you're like, I just want to be with the development side, and then when I'm ready, I'll let you know. The chance has come, the opportunity has come, the talent suggests that you're ripe to go and you play. I mean,
Chuck, they say they're not ready, but they aren't. They're ready to play in the PSL. Don't get me wrong. They're ready to be preferred. They are professional footballers, and they belong on that level. But there's something about being a successful team. There's something about playing for Kaizer Chiefs and confronting a Mamelodi Sundowns. For example, for supremacy in the league, they're not ready for that. But and if it was one or two of them, and I'll go back to what's happening with Orlando Pirates, right? Rele is the only youngster at his age, is 20 now, who came through and locked down a starting position. Nkotha's only joining him now. Around them are experienced campaigners. So you can look at Rele as a talisman, but you know that if it doesn't quite come off for him, there are grown men within that team who are able to handle situations beyond how talented or how good are you. When you are tested, when your character is again put through the fire, they don't have that experience, Chuck, to be able to carry the burden of playing for Kaizer Chiefs and delivering the kind of results that fan base is looking for from them. For me, it's unfair to have that expectations of young men as a collective. Again, as I'm saying, if Bugai won, we're talking something different. But it's a whole host of them where this is the core of the team. It's the youngsters. And if you're going to look to them to carry Kaizer Chiefs, I think that's a lot of weight to put on their young shoulders.
What's a coach to do, though? You come into the side, you assess and you evaluate the talent, and you're like, well, from my assessment, Zwane is ahead of Martin in the pecking order. Do you play Mart because they've been in the doldrums for the longest time? Do you look at that situation and say, well, along with putting Kaizer Chiefs back to where they belong, glory days, winning cups, winning leagues, I also have to nurture talent, I have to nurture egos and personalities? Or do you just say the best player has to stand up and put his hand up? Because these questions weren't there when Chiefs were pushing Sundowns in the league game, when they were controversially a goal away from drawing that game. Now that they get hammered 4, it's like a matter of now they're not ready. I think they were ready when the results were good. When people said Nabi is cooking, they were speaking about Duba and Mdu and Vilagazi and Zwan in terms of these players that Nabi is using are getting us results. Now that they haven't won in 3 games, now it's like the pressure's too much. I think every season will ebb and flow. I think you'll have difficult times. I think he will be tested. But I think as a young player who's been there as long as Du has been there and Zwan specifically, Duba just broken, I think, in the latter half of last season, and he's newer of the bunch. I think and you've seen what things look like at Chiefs. If Chiefs have not been in a good spot because of the players around you, and you're tasked to take them up, I think, yes, it's pressure, but I don't think it's pressure on them alone. Because if you think about it, yes, we can speak about pressure. If we isolate performance as one, he had a stinker, unfortunately. Sad to say, he had a stinker. He just didn't find his feet in that game. He was pressurized. But the onus was not on Zwane to control the game. The onus was on Kaizer Chiefs to have a midfield big enough or strong enough to combat Sundowns. It's just that they didn't have, and so he was exposed in that particular role. He was playing deep against Obas, Bafana International, Mukwena, Bafana International, Allende, who we want to sign to be a South African so that he can play for us, right?
And so my point is, expect a young man to be able to Bambela against those players.
I'm saying if he has backup and there are 2 other players who can complement his talents, then we can allow him to shine. And also, you're not going to play Sundowns every other week, is what I'm saying. Yes, in this particular game, that's tough. But when you're playing Makesi, I expect you guys to perform. When you're playing Polokwane State, when you're playing Amazulu or whoever, I expect you guys to come to a standard. There aren't too many expectations against Sundowns. You might not be
playing against internationals all the time, but you're going to be playing against grown men who are feeding their families. And it's the same kind of pressure. The pressure doesn't go away because even when you mentioned like when the results were happening, it was Kaizer Chiefs fans who were saying that Nabi was cooking, right? And this is on the basis of what? Beating like SuperSport, like putting 4 past SuperSport and winning the first round of the calling knockout. If you look at the other results, they've been poor. You know, even against Imakesi, when they come back from 2-0 down, and maybe that's something that had them being overconfident going into the match against Sundowns. And the coach comes into play in this one as well. Perhaps he went into that with a similar game plan as happened in that first game. But we saw with Sundowns, we were talking about this after that first match against Chiefs, that they didn't play the right players. They did play the right players. Yeah, this is the strongest Sundowns you could have come across. And as I'm saying, I put the blame on the coach there, where maybe he went in with the same idea that maybe I don't need to scout Sundowns again because like we've already played them and we were close. But then it was a different beast altogether. And that's what Sundowns have in their coffers. They're able to present a whole new game plan because they have not only the talented players, but they've got experienced players as well. You know. And I understand, and this is the conundrum for Chiefs, that who are you going to turn to in terms of those experienced players? Abeko, you know, I'm not sitting here saying that no, you have to play like the older guy, because I'm saying there are older players, but they're not necessarily experienced and they're not necessarily attuned to what it is that is Kaizer Chiefs, because even these young men, as much as they come from the DDC, they don't really know what it is to be a Kaizer Chiefs player at the very top. 5 years from now, they are going to be the leaders of this team. And the younger players who come in behind them, they're going to be able to tell them what it is, what it means to be a Kaizer Chiefs player. They also need that guidance. They need that mentorship. There's no one there. Unfortunately for them, is that there's no one that they can turn to. That is why everybody is turning to them. I'm saying that turning to them is a mistake, but it's a place that Chiefs have found themselves in because of what has happened with them not having success and continuously buying players and not having a great blueprint in terms of how to build this team. They've been thrust into this position. It's unfortunate and it's unfair on them, but it is where they find themselves. I'm just saying that I do expect that things like the result over the weekend is something that's going to continue coming up because you really cannot win anything with kids.
Hey, so Alex Ferguson proves otherwise, and if Nabi is who Nabi says he is, maybe he proves otherwise. But Jay, I just want to say finally on the matter, right? Uguti, when Umshin came in, I think he against Sundowns, who dominated the entire game, there was a bit of a difference in terms of trying to turn the tide, and they were already down to 10 men at that point. Players like that, Jay, have a bit of experience. I think they can do something in terms of aiding the other youngsters around them. But I think what is key here is patience. If the fans understand that we're not going to challenge Sundowns, not yet, or Pirates, not yet, let's give them a season and see how they mature, how they become better into their roles, because you want this core of players to grow up together and to understand each other. You don't want to chop and change for the sake of results, because then next season it's another experiment. So take your core and then say, okay, fine, we know here's what we can get from Mutuba, here's what we can get from Muzwan, and we've learned this and that against this opposition or against this team. We don't want to play them or we don't want to do this. And then next season, I think then you can have expectations, clear ones. But I think in the meantime, top 8 is a good enough place to aim for without that much pressure.
Yeah, I think if that is the expectation, then yes. But if the expectations are railed all the way up to you need to win us a trophy this season, you need to be maybe top 4 in the Premier League, that's shooting a bit too high.
So in the same game, right, there was lots of players in the Mamelodi Sundowns shirt who could have put up their hand to say I was man of the match. Mdiba, Allende, you could have said Utewo Mokoena, you could have said Reynolds as well with his brace. That's how good they were on the day, and that's how much dominance they had. But a player who's been shining, I think, from last season, according to your radar as well, and you're trying to let me know in the stadium, are you watching? Are you paying attention? I'm like,
You've been a hater. You're hating hard.
Lucas Ribeiro hit the crossbar with a shot, played a key pass for the goal, and it was just, had touches of magic here and there. Jade, according to you, because I'm hating, is he necessarily the best player in our league?
He's absolutely the best player in our league and already is top 5 in terms of overseas players we've brought into the PSL because he's a different talent, Chuck. He's an absolutely different talent. There is nothing that young man cannot do with the ball at his feet. And the way that Sundowns use him, I mean, he's topping the charts in the PSL in terms of goals scored. I think as well, maybe in the Carling knockout. And he's also topping the charts in terms of assists. And it's not just the raw numbers, right? You saw when he rattled the crossbar, he's scored that goal multiple times already in the short time he's been on Mamelodi Sundowns. And in terms of the assist numbers, the pass that didn't end up in a goal, where Shalulile runs in behind the 3 defenders of Kaizer Chiefs, the vision to see the pass and to weight it correctly, which again you were hating on, saying that he
overhit that.
He overhit it, and that's why Shalulile couldn't get around the keeper and score that. But the passes he's connecting with from deep, when he pulls centrally and he pulls deep. And he's most dangerous in that position because then he's got the view of the entire field. Whether it's Reynolds or Matthews running in from the one side, or it's Shalulile, or it's those fullbacks who are high and wide, he's able to find them. And then you see him toying with the opposition because it's too easy, Chuck, for him. In that second half, there was an opportunity for him to once again play a through pass, which we know at this point that he can do. But then he assessed the situation and thought to himself, maybe I'll go on around. Let me try dribble through the entire team. And this is how Miguel got a red card, because he was almost through those defenders, and Miguel's like, nah, not on my watch. I'm going to pull you down. And he's got the confidence to do that because he's got the ability to do that. There is nothing in terms of an attacking player, an attacking midfielder, or a forward that you would ask of one in that position to do that Brazilian cannot do. Head and shoulders the best player in the Betway Premier League.
And shoulders.
Head and shoulders. Head and shoulders, the best player in our league.
Head and shoulders. I think I disagree, man, because there's a certain president who I want to put up as a counter. Because, Jay, if you think about in the game when Kota scores a rocket and he scores his second goal, scores a brace, and he announces himself on the scene, there was someone nudging and saying, hey, I'm still here as well. In the midst of all of that, running the show for Pirates, in the absence of Umaswangai, I think for me, Rele Mofokeng is probably the best ball striker. I don't know if you can put up Ribeiro in the league. You
Jack,
see that
you
because
saw him.
No, think
you
about
saw
it.
him live.
Think about it.
Live and
I saw him live, Jay.
What do you mean? Like you cannot put him up against Mofokeng as a ball striker. You saw
his goal midweek. You saw his goal midweek from range.
I don't argue
You've
the fact, I don't argue the fact that
pulling.
Mofokeng has he's got a brilliant ball strike on him. But when you say you cannot put up anyone against him, Chuck, you saw it yourself.
Technique and brains, Jay.
Oh,
How many
goodness.
times is he laying people in that game against I think it was Amazulu, where he had the goalkeeper done. He had the defender done. The only guy who stopped the ball was the guy on the line. I think those kind of things are natural to him. He's killing guys for fun, number one. Number two, his pass is great. Number three, the work rate. Lapo, the work rate, because Mofokeng wins about.
What was when you are like
think
a super
about,
talent, Chuck?
That's the thing, Jay Uguti. That's the thing about Kevin De Bruyne. Kevin De Bruyne runs the show.
In all honesty, Lucas Ribeiro does work hard. Like when it's time for him to press, he does press. I will give Mofokeng that. I'm not
just talking about pressing. I'm just talking about ball winning. Mofokeng wins about 4 or 5 balls a game as a winger.
Okay, sure.
And then he wins those balls, and then
the SOFA score that would show up higher than Ribeiro. Everything else though, Ribeiro wipes the floor with everybody in the PSL.
Nah, man, wipes the floor, Jay.
Wipes the floor, Chuck.
No, Jay. Let me put up the boy's resume. Number one, we are MTN8 winners because he scores in the final. Big match temperament he's got at a young age. He was there face to face. Mano no Ribeiro in the Nedbank Cup. He upstaged him as well. When you talk about this campaign thus far. In a campaign where Pirates have looked quite good, almost as best as we've seen in the past 3 seasons, he's a star man. Jay's the catalyst for a lot of good things. Tito Maswangai is not himself, but we're saying at least we've got that guy. And I think for me, when you talk about a team that's won the league 7 times in a row and has cleaned up for the biggest campaign, it's fine that someone else is shining because they're dominant. But if a team has to go another level up, and that's the guy taking them to that level, for me, he can't look at Ribeiro and say he's head and shoulders above Mofokeng. Yes, he's young, he has more to prove, but he's got goals, he's got assists, he's got vision, he's playing the 10 as well at that age.
He's not playing the 10. He's coming from the wing. In the last game,
he was running the show.
Where it is congested when Ribeiro looks like he's got all the time in the world to set up a table, have dinner, call his wife, ask what we're having, what we're having later, where we're going out to. Like the fact that he's able to find that space talks about his talent. I'm gonna say the point that you make. The one criticism coming from last season that I want to see Ribeiro answer this season is what does he look like in crunch time? Because when Sundowns needed him in that final of the Nedbank Cup, when Sundowns needed him in that semi-final of the Champions League, he wasn't quite the same guy, right? And Rele has answered those questions. You're very correct, and Rele has answered those questions, and he has to show up in those moments. But in terms of the talent that he is, Chuck, like he's just different on the football field. I'm happy to give Rele number 2, but like at the very top,
the boy who walks in Bafana and they give him the number 10 just because his peers recognize that Jay. There is no head and shoulders,
at
man.
The very top
there
is
no
Lucas
head and
Ribeiro,
shoulders.
Chuck. He's just a different talent.
You know,
different talent.
Let's let the season wind out. Let's see how it goes. But I think these are the best two players to watch, and we're all better for it.
Yeah, and like whether you agree with me or you agree with Chuck, tell us in the comments what your thoughts are. Chuck, going to the Premier League, right? And it was a seismic weekend. Liverpool come back against Brighton to win 1-0 on a weekend where prior to their game coming to an end, Manchester City are losing away to Bournemouth. Bournemouth are giant killers, by the way. And Arsenal are losing once again and failed to win in 3 consecutive games now, 7 points off the top of the log. And beginning with Arsenal, Chuck, already at this point, are they out of the reckoning for the league title?
Not just yet because of what I assume is going to happen. I think this is not a season where it's 90 plus to win the league. Because if it is, then they're already out. Because the number of points at which they're behind at this point, at this early stage, like it's not even Christmas. I think then they're too far behind to mount a challenge because they've got players out still who are still going to cause an impact in terms of their title run. You're still going to miss your Odegaard. You're still going to miss who's out as well again. I forget. But nonetheless, what I'm saying is that they're not looking their best. But if it's an 84-point season kind of a thing, you can nudge it and win with 81 points or whatever, then they're definitely in it. Because I think it's got sounds and markings of that kind of season, because as much as City don't traditionally start well all the time, I think they're toiling towards victories, they're toiling towards results, and in this one, they couldn't put it out the fire. Bournemouth are just too good. So if it's that kind of season, a typical season before the introduction of Pep, before Mourinho in his 2-3 season run, what we tend to say we know about the Premier League, if that's what's happening, then Arsenal is still in it, because the tagline or the hype of the Premier League is that anyone can get it, anyone can win, and it's more than a one-horse title race. So if it's that kind of season, then they're in it. But if Liverpool are going to stick to their guns and keep running and keep pressing and finding results, then I think Arsenal could be already out at this stage.
You know what? I saw the reaction of some Arsenal fans talking about if it was Manchester City, maybe we'd be like, okay, pack it in because this is over. And saying that they'd rather be 7 points behind Liverpool than being 7 points behind Manchester City. And I have to agree with that, Chuck, because when Liverpool are concerned, right? And this is why I've always had a soft spot for Liverpool as an Arsenal fan, because like they've been through the same struggles as we are. And they also have the same Achilles heel as we do. Arsenal are most famously, and because they've done it more times than anybody else in Premier League history, the team you consider to be the bottlers, right? But right next to Arsenal, or maybe just behind Arsenal, who would you put there? It'd be Liverpool, right? So, yeah, they might have a 7-point lead against Arsenal. They had a 5-point lead over Arsenal last season going into the match at the Emirates, and eventually finished behind both City and Arsenal. And it's similarly, we've seen them, and given they were going against Pep Guardiola's Manchester City, where they had the opportunity, I believe, to go 7 or 10 points ahead playing City early in the new year, where they eventually ended up on 97 points and City on 99. They lost that match and went on to lose the title. And of course, Stevie G's slip, famously, we know what happened there. So they have a history. They have a history of having leads and blowing them. So if I were to count on either City or Liverpool doing that, it would be Liverpool. So yeah, 7 points is concerning. And the fact that I tend to believe you can't go on a run of 3 games where, especially it's like this, where it's a draw and 2 losses, and be a team that is considered to be in the title fight. Like, it's concerning what is happening with Arsenal, and the risk-averse football of Mikel Arteta is not paying off right now, because this over-reliance on set pieces being how you want to score goals. You've got Thomas Partey playing right back because you wanna shoehorn like Declan Rice into that midfield because you bought him for as much money as you did. We see Maresca, he's benching Enzo, and it's working out because Caicedo and Lavia are the pair to go within midfield, you know. And in my opinion, at Arsenal, you have to play Thomas Partey in the middle of the park if you have him available, and that's not something Arsenal fans have been able to say with regularity over the past few seasons. He's fit and is available, and you are missing Odegaard in the middle of the park. And Moreno at the moment, he's not quite set the scene alight. There's still question marks around him and how is he going to settle into that midfield. You do play like Thomas Partey in there because you need some form of technical brilliance to help carry the passing game. So there are question marks around Arsenal, because even if Liverpool do drop off, like, can Arsenal take advantage of that? Odegaard coming back is going to be important, but you cannot really tell me. And I really do believe is the most important piece of Arsenal. Saka is Arsenal's best player, but I believe Odegaard is Arsenal's most important player, both in what they do in attack and what they do out of possession with the first line of pressing. So he's going to make a difference, but I don't know that much, Chuck, where you're going to be able to overhaul that gap. They're not favorites to overhaul the gap, but if there was one team of between like Liverpool and City that I'd rather have like 7 points ahead of my team, it would be Liverpool.
I don't know, man. I maybe need to quote Patrice Evra when he says Arsenal are the Netflix team because you're always waiting for next season. Because it sounds to me, Jay, like whenever I've heard you speak about, like, if we take away the past 2 seasons, right, where Arsenal were genuinely challenging and they were at the top of the table and they bottled it or they fell away or whatever you want to say, right? You've always said to me that whenever Arsenal are looking now in the last 2 months where there's nothing on the line, they put together a run of games, like 10 games to get into the top 4 or whatever, and they look good because there's no pressure at this point. That sounds to me like the similar narrative in terms of 7 points. If you never make up 7 points, it's okay, because if they don't borrow it, that's going to be an anomaly, because usually Liverpool borrow some leads and we should be catching them, except for City, because City never bottle that lead, because if it's City, it's pressure. And at this point, if you're then saying 7 points gap is fine, it's not fine, Jay. Since when have this title challenging, almost flawless team going into Christmas?
I'm not saying it's fine.
No,
Chad.
what I'm saying is that it can't be, it's not even a situation that you'd prefer. The wheels have fallen off, basically.
Between
and yes,
Liverpool and Manchester City,
there is no lesser evil.
I'd rather be chasing. Chuck, you want to tell me that you'd rather? It doesn't matter who you're chasing. It would be. It's the same thing.
It's an indictment on your season, because three games in a row.
It is an indictment on Arsenal.
Three games
that's what
in
I'm
a
saying.
row.
It's like Arsenal not having a great season.
3 games in a row, and you haven't got the W. And my point is this, DJ, someone has to stand up. Someone has to turn the tide, because end of the day, I think the players maybe are tired. They've exhausted their ideas. They've scaled the mountain too many times, and to go again. Yes, maybe to have it within your sights, Liverpool is better than Liverpool. I don't think it's going to
happen. Let me put it out there. I don't think it's going to happen. That for me, the last 2 seasons, you had to take one of them, and I get it, right? Like it's a bit of a paradox, because like Manchester City have been unbeatable. Like they when if they're there on the stretch home, like they're gonna get over the line. Like it doesn't really matter what amount of points you put out there. Like they're gonna get a point, 2 points ahead of you. But the opportunity was there. And that was when to take the opportunity. This is why I'm not a fan of like looking at teams and like seeing that they filled with young players and thinking to yourself, they've got a great future ahead. Because what do you think the other teams are going to do? Just like stand still. They're also going to be making moves while your players are maturing and growing up. And by the time your players are there, like ready to be a good team, the other teams have moved ahead of them. You know, so yeah, coming into this season, and as Mikel Arteta said in his closing speech to the Arsenal fans after the final game last season, that not satisfied with what has happened, we're going to push some more. And he spoke with a confidence that we're almost there, you know. But that's not how it works in football. You know, you don't just go in steady climbs, and every time that the trajectory is pointing upwards, you're just gonna scale the mountaintop eventually. Because who are you going up against? Like you're swinging at the king and you keep missing. And what do you think is gonna happen? Like you're just gonna be given ample opportunities. I don't think this season, Chuck, is one where Arsenal gonna come back and do it. Like I do think the season, like in the Premier League at least, is already a wash, because that's a significant number of points. But if there was ever a team that there's a possibility to do it against, all I'm saying is that it's a Liverpool.
Hey, all I'm saying as well is that if these are the guys that you say they are, then you should have beaten them last week, no? Because you had a 2-1 goal lead, you hold on, and then your claims prove true. But when you were facing them mano a mano, you couldn't do it on the day, and they escaped with the point. So, yeah, I think Arsenal are out the race unless the points come down, and as we expect, City and Liverpool fault at some point, then they're back in the race. But you can't be losing to Newcastle. You can't be dropping points like that. But if the season is what I think it is, right? City drop points as well. Haaland, to the indictment of our FPL teams, he must go. He's not doing anything to help them, Jay. And so you have to look elsewhere in terms of where are the wins coming from, or who's the biggest catalyst? Is it the injured Kevin De Bruyne? Is it the injured what's injured?
Rodri?
Is it the injured Rodri, actually? It was out for the season. Or do you want more from Phil Foden or the wingers, or Doku, who's out as well now? Jay, what do you think is needed for City to be galvanized, or at least get back to winning ways where they win comfortably?
So if I were to pick any of those players to be fit and to be in form to help City right now, for only one of them, it has to be the Ballon d'Or winner. Because I think Phil Foden, right? And I was close to saying Phil Foden, because Phil Foden, I mean, he didn't carry City last season, but where in the absence of Kevin De Bruyne, he was creating. In the absence of Haaland, he was scoring. So you might think him, and as I'm saying, he was a close shot for me in terms of that's the player that you want back. And maybe if it's a surprise that I'm not saying Kevin De Bruyne, because he is the player who is most gifted, or who has the greatest ability to unlock Haaland. And if he's giving the assist to Haaland scoring, then City are going similarly. But like I think in the last few seasons, Kevin De Bruyne is not quite at his absolute peak. And once again, they went a large majority of last season without him, and they did quite fine. Similar to the season where he did win player of the season, I think, where he got 20 assists or something like that. That's when Liverpool won the league. So they can do it without Kevin De Bruyne, but I do think that Rodri is absolutely the best player in his position in the entire world, right? And it's not just defensively where they're unable to keep any clean sheets. I think if you have Rodri, that helps you on the defensive side of the ball. But in these close games, we've seen him, like, if you can look to him and you can call upon him to go win you the game, which is, again, how many times have you been able to say that about a DM, you know? And in terms of what he's able to give you in the passing game, like, he's absolutely brilliant and sure in possession, and in terms of, like, setting everybody else in terms of where they need to be and how they need to take. So if I were to choose of any of those players, some of them are already back, like Gundogan and Walker, but they looked like they're not yet fully fit against Bournemouth. It would have to be Rodri, Chuck. For you?
I think I wanna not fully agree. I mean, Rodri is important for all the reasons that you've listed, right? And you can see a Rodri size hole. But when I think about the injured Kevin De Bruyne and the instant impact he had as soon as he was back fit for City, scoring a screamer, giving those assists, and at some point he had 5 assists for Haaland or something like that, and you're like, okay, that's direct injection. Whereas, I mean, I'll use the criticism against Kevin De Bruyne to his advantage, because they keep saying, when you're in the Euros, in the World Cup, against the Italies and the Spains of this world, you don't perform. You're only good against the Bournemouths and against the Brightons of this world. That's what City need. They need to be dominant against those sides and get points, because you're not playing Chelsea, you're not playing Liverpool every other week. So I think for them to get back to the winning ways, I think that's someone that you can get an injection from in terms of he changed the results or the momentum of a game like that. But I do hear your Rodri shout, Jay, because that composure, that stability that City have always had, if it was not Fernandinho, it was Rodri, right? And Rodri took it another level higher, because not only does he give you that stability in front of goal, he gives you that winning goal, he gives you that key pass as well, and it's just a machine all over the park. And so I think I want to say
character as well.
Yeah, true. He never say die attitude, right? Because he shows up even when the chips are down.
And that bites. Like, he's not just one of Pep's technical angels. Like,
do you think though that City need bite and they need mentality? Because they are mentality monsters. But do you think that's what's lacking at this point, or do you think it's a spark?
You need. You
don't think it's a spark, Jay? Because I think it's a spark of quality.
Both,
because I think Kevin De Bruyne gets on the ball more, hence he's able to affect the game more than Rodri does. So I think that's why I'm leaning towards that side, even though I do hear the Rodri shout.
Yeah, I think it's both, because even their approach to possession, another risk averse team.
Yeah.
You saw against Bournemouth, they got up in their faces and they were able to win those balls in the midfield and then hit them on the counter attack, which, one, of course, is you want that ball security, but second to that, you want a man who's going to be going up against a Semenyo and have they be able to have a shoving match, you know?
Yeah.
That, okay, Semenyo might come out on top in this one, but then Rodri might come out on top in the other one. Whereas with the current crop that they have, or even if it was the Breno who comes back, and I'm thinking about him when, like, he was crying on the field. You need more than just being the pass masters and being able to play teams off the field. That when you don't have a day like that, like, can we win ugly? And the catalyst for that is Rodri.
I think we're looking at this differently, because I think City are not going to be needing to win ugly that often. But if they need to, then definitely I'm with you. But if they dominate and they overall and they control possession, I think the guy
Rodri also gives you.
Which is true, but I just think the guy with the more touches, the more shots, the more influence on the game. I mean, for instance, never mind price. The person that you're going to probably buy on your FPL team is Kevin De Bruyne, because the either will be an assist or a goal. And I think that's what they need right now to calm the waters or to get them sparked up. But in terms of control...
that's why that form of Premier League is fantasy. In the real world, you call upon the Ballon d'Or winner. Chuck,
yes, sir.
Going to the UFC, right, and beginning with, we revisit Max Holloway, following his loss against Topuria. He is moving up in weight class and is looking to go into the lightweight division forever, seemingly because he wants to eat his ramen. But this being his next step, do you see him being as successful in the land of Islam as he has been in his career up to this point?
I think if Topuria can wrestle, Islam can take it another level higher. So I don't think it takes the belt, but I don't think Max Holloway is about the belt at this point in time. I think it's all about entertaining and legendary fights because the barnstormer that they had with Justin Gaethje, that is memorable in the minds of everyone at UFC 300, right? And I think
And
if
that
you
was
think
at
about
that division. That was
yeah,
at that weight,
yes.
that weight class.
And because of his pedigree, he's already listed at being fifth on the rankings for feather, welter, bantam, up at what lightweight. Thank you, lightweight. So I think if you think about the roster at lightweight, right? There's a Dan Hooker, there's Michael Chandler, there is Charles Oliveira. There's people that which he can slug with and have a barnstorming fight where Max can show off his skills. Whereas with the 145, he's been there, done that. I mean, what do you do? Do you fight Volkanovski again? Do you try to prove a point against Topuria? Whereas he said himself that he feels stronger, he feels better at 155. So I think if anything, that it's just going to take Holloway up in terms of what the fans think about him, in terms of his display. But against the wrestling, I don't know if he ever captures gold.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how he does at the higher weight because even in the division that he was fighting and he's big for that division, right? And you think maybe now, particularly as he continues to mature, this is maybe a more natural class for him to be in. But yeah, Israel Makhachev is pound for pound the best in the world, and I'm thinking of like a Max Holloway. He's not just any other fighter, right? Even though at 300 we saw him like fight for the BMF title, he is a title fighter. He's a prize fighter. So I would think to myself, with him going into the lightweight division, his idea is to go there and win a belt, win the belt. And I just don't know at this stage of his career, at this stage of their careers, not only him but also like with Islam, if he can go and do it. This is fighting at the end of the day. Anything can happen. You catch a guy the right way, particularly with him being the elite striker that he is. He might be able to capture the crown. I just don't think at this point in his career, again, at this point of Islam's career as well, he's going to be able to get into that division and run that division.
I think wrestling is a very good weapon in the UFC, and for as long as Islam is as good a wrestler as he is, it's not going to be easy to pry that title or that belt away from him. But I think if you put Max against all the other guys, pretty soon he's going to get a title shot because I think he's itching to fight against Dustin Poirier before he leaves because I think Dustin is 2-0 over him. He's itching to fight the Michael Chandlers and the Dan Hookers, the guys of the world who've scaled the heights and are there for the taking. So I think he can still have credible fights. He can still have a shot for the title, but I think it has to be in someone's hands if I'm being realistic because wrestling is a big weapon and I don't think that's his strong suit. So if someone else like Michael Chandler, who is decent enough, we'll get to see what American wrestling versus Russian wrestling looks like. In the UFC, it hasn't quite fared very well, the American wrestling that is, but we'll see where that one goes. But I think he's not necessarily making a bad move, but I think he's got scores to settle and it'll be exciting.
And in the case of Brandon Moreno, right, who won in the UFC showcase in Edmonton over the past weekend, he's come back and it was a unanimous victory for him. And he was asked in terms of what's next for him, and he also mentioned perhaps being in the title picture. Do you see that for him?
Yes, and also it's a tiring yes and no because he put Albazi away, right, in a dominant display. He was 50-45 at just about on all scorecards. One guy said 49-46, but he was that dominant. And he's someone who's very good with his jiu-jitsu. He's got 11 submissions and only 5 stoppages by striking. And for him to go out there and strike, because I think he lost the match to Royval. I think it's Brandon Royval early on in the year in February, and he said he needed time away. So for him to come back 8 months later and look as good as he's done, I think that's very impressive. But here's the thing with Brandon Moreno, Jay. I think it's played out at this point in time because Royval, who he lost to, in February, he's already fought twice. He's already fought Kaizer France twice, who's below him. The guy who is above him, Pantoja, he's already fought twice again. He's been in 3
times against Pantoja and he's lost 3 times against him.
And then he's fought Davison Figueiredo 4 times because he was the champion at that point. The first match was a draw, and then he captures the title. Then Figueiredo gets his win back, and then he gets it again from him. At that point, Figueiredo was saying, "I'm trying to fight someone else, guys. Like, I'm tired of fighting the same guy over and over again." And I think that's where Brandon Moreno finds himself. That you're gonna fight Kaizer France again, or Royval, or Pantoja again, and you're like, he needs a different look, So he's not too far from the title race because he's listed number 2 and the number 1 ranked opponent is someone he's fought already. So I think it doesn't look as exciting or as promising, but he's not that far from the title shot, because if he loses one or wins one, he's in the same spot again. Because what do you do as Pantoja? You don't fight the guys who are number 6 or number 10. You go to the guys who are top 5. That's at least what the rankings are for. So yeah, he's in a bit of a pickle. But I mean, that's how it's sitting right now, that he fights and gets the title shot quite soon.
So Pantoja is the champion at the moment, and he's coming up in a fight against Kai, right? And it's so interesting because on the one hand, when Moreno was answering his question and talking himself up maybe in the light of a title fight, he did mention that the UFC does what the UFC does, and we'll see what happens, because he reckons that maybe he's going to need to fight one more time in order to get back into the title picture once again. Because against Royval, who he lost to, he's open to fighting him, but he says he doesn't want to fight Kai, who he's beaten twice, and that's a bit of a head scratcher for me. So you open to fighting a guy to whom you've lost to. You've split the decisions twice against Royval, but most recently you lost to him. You're open to fighting him. You're not open to fighting Kai because you've beaten him twice already. You are the same guy who fought Figueiredo 4 times already. And in order to get a title shot, if it goes the way of the champion against Pantoja, like Pantoja would be the champion that you're trying to have a go at, you are trying to fight him for a 4th different time, even though you've lost to him 3 times already. So it may happen that he has to fight and beat Royval, or if it happens that Kai does beat Pantoja for the title, then the man that you say you don't want to fight for like a 3rd time, you're gonna have to fight him anyway. So his destiny is in the hands of the UFC. But I mean, with Moreno is one of the more popular like figures in the UFC, and most famously for that sound bite, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday, you know. And it's good to see him back in the octagon, and we'll see if he does get into the title picture. He's one of the better flyweights, like in the history of the UFC. I think he spent the most hours now, like more than who's that guy? Something Mouse.
Oh, Mighty Mouse.
More than Mighty Mouse. He spent the most hours fighting in this division. So he's got pedigree. We were curious in terms of what is he going to look like on his comeback. He did win convincingly, as you say, against Amir. So we'll see if it does factor into the title picture going forward.
I think they should just do a 4-way tournament where they just fight on the night, eliminator, and then get the belt on the night. Have 2 eliminators, 1 final. That's the only way to sort this out, because I sort of get where Moreno's coming from, because I don't want to fight that guy again and just... What if I lose? I'd rather fight someone that I've had trouble fighting for.
If he fights against Pantoja for the title and loses for the 4th time, I think that's it for him.
But that's fine if I'm fighting for the belt, Jay. Versus just someone there who's at number 5. It's justified in terms of my energy and my... A fight camp for 3 months to beat a guy that I've beaten again. Like, what if I beat him for the 3rd time, what point would I have made? You know what I mean? Yeah. And then if I lose to him, then I'm just losing ground versus me getting a realistic shot. So I sort of understand. Speaking about shots, some articles say Embiid struck the reporter. Most of them say he just pushed them. But certain Hughes, I forget his first name now, wrote an article in which he listed Joel Embiid's son, his late brother as well, and also in the midst of all of that, saying that he just doesn't want to play enough because he's not healthy enough. And yeah, Batlangana in the change room, mano a mano, and he was like, you know what? I'm tired of using my words. I'm going to shove you and let you know that I am tired of you. Because he said that if you write that article again, I'll suffer the consequences because I'm going to do something next time. Jay, in the NBA, because we do know that the press are allowed in the locker room to get those interviews, when a player gets heated and does not control himself and does that, has he crossed the line, or do you think the guy who wrote the article warrants that kind of reaction from Joel Embiid?
Hard to say, right? First of all, just to say, don't condone physical altercations. But where is the line for the media? And I say this as a member of the media. Like, where is the line for the media? Because why are you going into stories about his late brother? Why are you talking about his son? You know, that has nothing to do with Joel Embiid, the basketball player. You cover the game. You cover the player. You cover basketball. Unfortunately, though, how this works, if you are an athlete, a personality, what the stories that those who are following are clamoring for is more than just what you do on the court, right? It's a complete narrative. For example, famously, if you think about Philadelphia with Allen Iverson became who he became because of his affiliations outside of the court and everything about his personality. Partly that's why he became a big star, and that's why he became a lightning rod for the media, you know, and it serves the purpose of, like, in the olden days we would have said like selling newspapers. In this case would say increasing the click rate, but also it does actually elevate the athlete themselves. But I do think that is a line you should not cross, because what purpose does it serve? Having said that, though, as an athlete, you cannot put your hands on anybody. You cannot put your hands on a member of the media, because number one, like, what happens if this person sues you or files an assault case? You know, you won't justify it by saying, well, he wrote about my personal life. Yeah, he was not in the right to do that, but you will suffer even greater consequences than this man who is paid to write these stories and who's paid to prod you and try to get that kind of reaction from you, because then it becomes news again. That's why we're talking about it right now, you know. And in the case of Joel Embiid, it's also difficult because he has, and this is what he was expressing, that like after having given what he's given to this team, and he still has these question marks where he says that he played with a fractured skull, with a fracture on his face, and he could have lost his sight. And he was also citing other injuries where he's played through that. Whereas the feeling from Philly and NBA out, like, worldwide, is that maybe Joel has not been available on certain nights, not because really he's injured, but he's a little soft, or he's not as committed as he should be, and he was pushing back against that, and then of course other stories. So there's a whole lot with Joel Embiid in terms of the question marks around him and how committed he is to the game. And with basketball, this is a big thing. How much do you love the game? You know, and there's a feeling that he doesn't love the game as much, and he feels disrespected, that there are these questions around him. Rightly, wrongly, that's for you to decide. But in terms of the news, don't write about guys' personal lives, because you're crossing a line and you're asking for it. But having said that, as an athlete, you cannot get physical with anyone for that matter, because it's gonna end much worse for you than it is for them.
I think it's a lose-lose situation for Embiid, because already the article's out there, right? And the guy's written it to draw eyes to it, for it to be sensationalized. There we go.
That's the one.
Yeah, and already it's drawn bad publicity, or whatever the guy wrote about Embiid, and then for you to strike the guy or to push him, that's more bad publicity towards your way. So you never lose. You're never in a good light, because according to this guy's article, you're painted in a particular way that you don't want it enough. And when you're fighting the guy, not only do you not want it enough, but you're also violent. And so it's a lose-lose situation for him, unfortunately, right? But I feel sometimes that he does commit to those acts because he feels there's no protection. The guys can write whatever they want about him, and, well, nothing's happened thus far, you know, and so I'll take matters into my own hands. So I feel for the media, for the press, there must be a line, there must be some conduct, there must be some rules, or we can't do this. Because I think if you can't justify why you've brought the brother into the article or the son into the article, there should be some form of punishment where the athletes can feel that, okay, fine, the primary piece that people are writing about me is because of my work or because of my athletic ability. Write those articles. And yes, because I am who I am, stuff outside of the court will come up and be new stuff. That's fine, but why are you writing it? You know, and I think if players can be protected from that particular vantage point, then it makes it better. But all in all, Jay, I don't think that he should be striking anyone or pushing anyone, because, like I said, he never wins. He never comes out of that winning, you know. He says he's happy to front up all those consequences should he do something, but I don't think that's the way to go about it, man. And I think the guy has definitely crossed a line, because he did go on social media to try and apologize. It was too late. He did try to...
Because he warned him. He told him he'd done this before. And you know what, Chuck, as a man, right? Like, as a man, and Joel is protecting his own... That's his late brother. That's his son. Like... I get it.
Yeah,
I get it, because and as we're saying, like, with the apology that the journalist tried to put forth, but Joe says, like, you've done this before and I've told you before, like, I've warned you, and you continued to do the same thing. So that apology is not sincere. You're just saying that because there's a 7-footer, 300-pound man standing in front of you and threatening you and being aggressive with you, which is another thing, right? Because you push his buttons, and when he becomes aggressive, we know what the story is going to be about that black man who's being aggressive.
Yeah,
we know what it's going to be, so like I feel bad for Joel, like in that sense. And as I'm saying, like, as a man, I get where he's coming from, but there is the added caveat that he's an athlete, and he's the face of a franchise in Philadelphia. So there's a lot that is expected of him, and one of those things is how you handle yourself, because the main guys, they all go through this. Like they all are tried by the fire of mainstream media and perceptions, and it comes with the territory of being a superstar in the NBA. So yeah, I don't want to just say he must suck it up. I don't want to just say he should just deal with it. But it's something that he has to manage. And for Joel's sake, I really do hope this season he does stay healthy and he eventually wins a title for that place. If not, like, LA is right there. It's right there. Like LeBron is right there. You can go join him in LA and like bring a title to La La Land. But like it'd be great to see him stay healthy and do it in Philadelphia. And knowing Joel, he'd probably say, now what? And be out of there.
I think, yeah, man, it's a tough situation because he hasn't played with the Sixers at all. He's been injured, right? He's still waiting to play, and this is the big news that comes out concerning Joel Embiid. I don't think that reporter was supposed to be in the locker room to begin with, knowing. Maybe he assumed it's because Joel's not playing, he's not in the locker room, I don't know. But the guy knows what is written. He's been warned before, and they is still in the locker room. So I think, yeah, some of the people at the 76ers should have done something about it to read the room or read the situation and know what's going on. But it's happened at this point in time, and we don't necessarily condone it, but we do understand where the frustration comes from. Just keep out of each other's way. And when Mr. Hughes, stop writing these articles.
Those look shy. All right. Thank you once again for joining us on this episode of Two Up Front. Please continue to watch, to like, to subscribe, and to share from our YouTube channel. It is Two Up Front. You can listen to the audio on Joburg Post, which is the city of Johannesburg's online radio station, every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. And you can listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can interact with us on our social media pages. It is at Two Up Front across all social media platforms. I am at J_Mzulu. Chuck is at Chuck2Up. From Jay, I'm outie.
City lost, Arsenal lost, but Chiefs were thrashed. That's different. Chiefs were thrashed. And Mangoba asked, what about the kids? And Nabi said, F those kids, I don't know.
The kids ain't all right.
And I'm out.